Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America.
That's how the White House is describing the Canadian Prime Minister's turnaround on its digital service tax. Now, Canada dropped the 3% tax that would have hit both domestic and foreign tech giants like Amazon and Google after U.S. President Trump stopped trade talks because of it. Now, the first payments were set to be collected on Monday. Canadian business leaders are cheering, saying the tax would have hurt consumers, but critics argue Canada caved to U.S. pressure. The move gets trade talks back on track, with Canada targeting a deal by July 21st. Canada calls it strategic positioning for better negotiations ahead. To break all of this down for us, joining us now is Aurel Braun. He is a professor of international relations and political science at the University of Toronto. So I guess, would you say this is a win for Trump, a loss for Canada, or is this just a case of gamesmanship at this stage?
This is a multi-layered issue. So this is a local problem, but it reflects an international issue. It is something that speaks to negotiating tactics, whether it is better to fight Mr. Trump or to flatter him. And lastly, we have to also look at what is the impact of that big bill that made its way through, or is making way through Congress on trade, because the United States will need to collect more money on tariffs. And I think at the moment, we are in an area of uncertainty. There is hope that there will be a trade deal reached between Canada and the United States by the 21st of July. There's an enormous amount of pressure, particularly on Canada. Canada has United States as by far its largest trading partner. United States is not nearly as dependent on trade with Canada. We are only the second largest trading partner, and as a percentage of international trade, the United States trades less than Canada.
So did this tax ever really have a chance of survival, did you think?
It might have, because the Canadian government, a minority government, also needs revenues. And this meant that Canada gave up something like $2 billion worth of revenue, because this tax was supposed to be retroactive as well. And this is a complicated tax because it involved digital services, which is a new development in international relations. You don't need to have an actual physical presence in another country to be able to sell goods. Google, Meta, and so on. And so this sets an example in trade negotiations for the United States with other countries as well. And so it was a major concession. The Canadian government tries to portray it as a clever tactic by giving something to Mr. Trump, by flattering, in a sense, Mr. Trump, allowing him to have a kind of victory. The hope is that somehow Mr. Trump would reciprocate. Given how Mr. Trump has behaved in the past, I think this hope is far from certainty.
Well, you mentioned earlier, I'd like to circle back to it, is it better to fight or to flatter? What's the tactic here?
Mr. Carney owes in part his election to Mr. Trump, who said that he preferred Mr. Carney to the conservative candidate, but it is a minority government. And so we had a meeting which was held in Canada with the G7, and there was a meeting also with NATO. And in both cases, leaders of the alliance and leaders of the G7 thought that by flattering Mr. Trump, becoming sort of Trump whisperers, they could have a better arrangement. But at the moment, much more is at stake that is concrete. It involves actual funds. It involves revenue. It involves how the economy performs. So I'm not sure that this approach will be nearly as effective in negotiating trade with Mr. Trump.
When it comes to coffers, you look at big tech, they obviously have a lot of money. Is this going to chill future efforts, do you think, to tax big tech globally?
It may. It is quite complicated, and it's a reflection of how technology has changed the way countries interact in trade. And using the old standards, using the old, so to speak, vocabulary of trade doesn't work as well. So I think just in general, there will have to be a rethinking, reconceptualization of where you want to have as much freedom as possible of trade, where you want to have reciprocity, how do you make the arrangements that would allow fairness for all countries. And this is not going to be resolved all at once. This is an ongoing process. But specifically in the case of Canada, this became a stark issue where Mr. Trump, as we know, suspended negotiations. So Canada at that stage could have fought Mr. Trump or could have conceded. And so the hope here is that by making this concession, which the White House was not particularly gracious about, they gloated over it, that making that concession somehow will put Mr. Trump in a better mood and that he would be more willing to compromise. I wonder if that will be the case.
Yeah, so then what about this July 21st trade deadline? Is that actually reachable, do you think?
It will be very difficult to reach because there are so many complex issues between Canada and United States. This was only one issue, the digital sales tax. We have issues over lumber. We have issues over steel and aluminum. And there is a very tricky issue which relates to dairy products, which has been a major irritant, particularly in the case of Mr. Trump, but it has been an irritant with other presidents as well. Canada has a managed system to produce dairy. In other words, we control how much is produced and what the prices are. And beyond a certain kind of quota, anything coming in from the United States is very heavily taxed. Now, Canada cannot just give that up because there has been legislation, a bill passed through, which protects the dairy industry, particularly in Quebec, where the separatists are strong. And this is Bill CO2. So basically, Mr. Carney would need to go back to Parliament to make this change. And that would cause an outroar in Quebec. And the Liberals, who receive many votes in Quebec, can ill afford to do that. So these would be really tough negotiations. But Mr. Trump in the past has had deadlines, and he changed those deadlines, and we don't know what will happen. But I think it would take a tremendous amount of optimism to believe that these negotiations will be completed and successfully by this very tight deadline.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces, as you point out, and some great insights there, Aurel Braun. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yep.